All right, as we kick off our recording, we'd like to acknowledge that today we are in a virtual space in which we are all in occupied, unceded lands and territories belonging to Indigenous nations across the world. And we are appreciative of everyone being here and for everyone who has signed our code of conduct. This is a safe virtual space in which we are gonna be kind to one another and share our enthusiasm for invention education and sustainable invention. And we're going to learn from a host of panelists who are going to share their experiences. And we're so thrilled that you're with us. We'd love for you to keep this conversation going tonight, and go ahead and you can be putting questions in the chat, but don't forget that we're on social media and you can go ahead and follow us, follow all three of the groups, Beyond Benign, NOBCChE, and Society for Science, by using the hashtag Sustainable Invention Speakers. Without further ado, what I would love to do tonight is introduce our esteemed moderator, Dr. Jorge Valdez. He is an educator advisor at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, where he is focusing on increasing intellectual property knowledge through education, outreach, and collaborations with a broad range of stakeholders. So we are thrilled that Jorge is with us tonight, and I would like to turn it over to Jorge to kick things off and be our moderator for the evening. Jorge, I'm going to pass it to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kate, and welcome participants from all over the country, I see, and our esteemed panel of speakers today. This is really super exciting. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you to share in the exciting work and discussions that we're going to have today. We're going to welcome our panelists. We're going to have some introductions from each of them. They'll tell you in a few minutes a little bit about their journey and their careers and how they got to where we are today. And then we'll have an open question and answer period where you can get to put questions in the chat, or at the end of the session, we'll have you have an opportunity actually to speak if you want to ask the questions. But let me, I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Greg Tucker, who Dr. Tucker obtained his doctorate in chemistry from the School of Molecular Sciences at Arizona State University and a bachelor's degree from Tennessee State University. He is currently commercialization manager with the University of Louisville and advisor with the Boston Museum of Science, the EDI committee member of the Association of University Technology Managers, and of course, member of NOBCChE. Professionally, he's a co-inventor on multiple issued US patents with the Engel Lab Group, and has created novel chemical compositions for applications in batteries and fuel cells as potential power sources ranging from stationary to electric vehicle. Additionally, he has been recognized as a rising star in CNE News, a medalist of the ASU Laboratory Safety Innovations Award, and has earned the 2020 Outreach Member of the Year from the American Chemical Society. Last but not least, Dr. Tucker has or was a co-advisor for the ASU Chief Science Officers Program for K-12 students. And I know we have a lot of educators here today with us, so this is going to be super exciting. And without further ado, Dr. Tucker, welcome.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Valdez, Jorge. Great to be here. It's been a while since I had a chance to be on a virtual platform with everyone here, and it's great to be here. So I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight. Thanks for this platform for Black History Month and just talking about our innovation series as well. So I'm Dr. Greg Tucker. I am a commercialization manager at University of Louisville. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but basically I help our faculty with their ongoing research. We discover what's novel about it, the advantages of it, determine if we want to file a patent with it, and then from there, with that patent, commercializing it into a company. And then even I still, to this day, still do a little moonlighting of what I've done from my past freelancing opportunities with entrepreneurship and anything along those lines. But next slide, please. And since you ended with me being a co-advisor with the Chief Science Officer Program, CISO, tonight, besides myself being here, I had a chance to invite one of my students. So not only have I been in the lab at the university at the collegiate level, but I've also been very involved in the community ever since I moved to Arizona. I was over there well over 10 years. I actually had a chance to not only work on my research in the lab, like was kind of mentioned, but I thought the neighborhood that I ended up moving into was a historically African-American neighborhood, in particular where it can be a socially economic impacted area, and then also a lack of access of what was happening just literally miles away. So I had a chance to, with some other people in the neighborhood, we ended up starting first originally the Ironman Network, which was going on for over a good 10 years. In fact, I've known Renee will talk probably a little bit more about his experiences with the program, but it was, we started, I think he was 4 or 5 years old now, well over what, 16 now. And then from there, we had a chance of ourselves being life coaches, me having a science background. There's another guy from Intel, guys who've been in the Army, guys who've been working in finances to showcase our skill sets to these young men, where you can see some of them pictured there. We had a chance to take them to the college, the local university, go into the laboratories from there. If people don't know this, Arizona has a biosphere, and they actually call it #2 because it is a mini Earth. So at one point it was a closed system. They actually done some NASA missions there. That took me over 5 years for us to finally get that program off the ground. And then importantly, I actually shared some of my research that I was doing in the lab there, fuel cell technology. I'll actually dive into that a little bit more, but it's a form of electric vehicle. And obviously we all are more familiar with electric vehicles, especially when Tesla came about, and more so the cars that are on the road that we can talk a little bit more about. But pictured in the far kind of bottom right is an actual fuel cell car, where basically, I'll tell a little bit more about it, but it just runs off of hydrogen gas that you can actually produce right there on the car from standard household water. So it's really cool to see it in action. And the young men got a lot of opportunities to learn about that aspect. But then also to the far left, we also did some solar activities. So this is probably later down the years where the young men actually, besides me mentoring them, they actually got to do some demonstrations themselves with some kids in the community. Outside of that, I've worked also with the state of Black Arizona, which was a group out of Arizona State University, or at least affiliated with them, and doing different science demos across the state, from Northern Arizona all the way to Tucson. Also later, we were starting to get more so recognized in the community. A guy even followed me around and made a documentary of it. It was actually accepted to film festivals. And later, we got wind that Arizona State University wanted to actually start a chapter of the Chief Science Officers Program. So originally, over those 10 years, we probably had around 100 kids. People got older. What was the success stories of some of those young men going to college, or even just going in high school, focusing on STEM. And then, as you can tell to the top with Renee and some of his peers up there, we got the Chief Science Officer Program. Next slide, please. Wow, it's a lot of going on here, a lot of good memories. And so what is a fuel cell? So first off, I want to just talk about internal combustion engine. We're all kind of familiar with that, gas power. Well, right next to it is a fuel cell. A fuel cell is basically similar to that kind of cell block, but instead of putting gasoline in there, you put hydrogen gas. And you can get this hydrogen gas from splitting water on a catalyst, which is platinum in typical cases. Then from there, you go straight from chemical energy to electrical energy. If you see right in between there, that's actually an experimental vehicle that was by the Army being used in Arizona, running off of fuel cells. So what's so great about fuel cells? Well, they have the ability to have 2.5 times more energy efficiency, and you can quickly refill them. Now that's used for energy generation, but I also worked on lithium ion batteries for energy storage. So a lot of you all are more kind of familiar with that. So half my patents are in fuel cells, the other half in batteries. That was my first patent. If you've never seen a patent before, that's an opportunity. Just kind of want to showcase that. As a grad student, I ended up starting an electric bike company. And then from there, I pivoted and ended up just kind of giving more outreach into the community about electric vehicles and just more access to science. Next slide, please. Yeah, and last but not least, not many people get an opportunity to go into a lab. With this being a lot of K through 12 students, a lot of times, you might dissect a frog, or I've heard some people do a cat as well. So I just wanted to show, kind of outline some of the steps that are kind of done with just kind of the preparation, working with moisture sensitive chemicals. Lithium is definitely power forward, so it can actually combust upon moisture or contact with air. Some of the synthesis involved. I took different pictures and kind of made a collage. So this is not the exact experimental trial that I'm doing. As you can tell, I had a different haircut at the time, but a lot of things, some of the aspects people might be more familiar with in a lab that they see on TV or maybe from distance is the vials, the glass vials, test tubes. So you can see the sample and putting the pellet, assembling it. And that is actually a lab scale model of fuel cell within that oven, where we do it at various temperatures, some of the gases involved, the potential stat testing equipment. And later down the road, I ended up working with other scientists, some of my cohorts, and we actually licensed some, well, I was part of the company that licensed technology when I could help with that startup. So that's kind of a little bit of my journey in a nutshell. I'm a man of many hats, but still a man of one lab coat. And I will pass the baton to Renee.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker, for sharing that wonderful story. When I see the pictures of the lab, it reminds me of some of my good times many years ago at the laboratories and being in a similar environment. Really have the great pleasure of introducing one of your students, Rene Dennison, who is currently an 11th grade student at Maricopa Institute of Technology, which is a STEM school. Rene has had a long passion for projects that have incorporated STEM, and he was also elected into the Chief Science Officer program that you talked about. And in this program, he collaborated with other students elected through schools and institutions that essentially are focused on bringing more awareness and exposure to the importance of STEM and inspiring others to be more involved in these activities. He is also a member of another mentoring program called Ironman Network, which he may tell us a little bit more about. And he's focused on the coding aspects. He's interested in the coding aspects of STEM and is striving to major in software engineering in the future. So Rene, welcome. It's really an honor and a privilege to have you here on this great panel.
Yes, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. Can you go to the next slide? So my name is Renee. My at the STEM-based high school that I go to, MIT in Arizona. I've learned some of the basic and fundamental concepts and ideologies involved in many areas of STEM. I have always had I've always loved the STEM aspect of math, and that's what drew me to STEM in the first place, is having an interest in math and those and similar activities as building and engineering and similar things to that. Next slide. So some of the inspirations that I've had for going into STEM besides math is things that I grew up with and I've been taught and I've been exposed to. So I was exposed to using building with Legos, which was at a very young age. I was focus, and I loved and enjoyed the aspect of building different things and structures and being able to take something apart and then use certain pieces and then build something completely new with a new purpose and similar things like that. And some of the experiences I've gone through are some more of the experiences I've gone through are trips to the Science Center, which I have gone with my mom. I've gone with certain school programs, and I've attended for other things. And that going there, being able to see and learn all the different types of science and everything that goes into making things and the complex systems of how they work, that has always been very interesting to me, and is what also drew me to STEM. And then I was also fascinated from trips to the Science Center to focus on how computers work. Because for me, it's fascinating to understand how a computer works, because computers are everywhere, and they're going to be everywhere, and they're going to be for everything. So I believe that learning the basics of how computers work will, if it's not now, will probably be a necessity in the future for any career, just because the way computers have evolved many jobs, it's going to be mandatory to know how they work. So understanding how computers work, I've known is going to be fundamental. And I was always interested in learning computers to improve my success. So next slide. And then some of the projects that I've done, there were others, but some of the major projects that I've done is created a solar panel backpack, and where I had to, where I had come up with the idea of a remote charging station with you. And I thought of solar panels as a way to get electrical charge on the go. And I thought combining that with the usage of a backpack, which is storing items. And I realized that was a very fundamental thing and could be very useful. And so I created a prototype of a solar panel backpack, where I put a solar panel on a backpack, and I've used this project and demoed it at an education summit at my church, and that was basically me explaining and showing other younger children and others the fundamentals of the solar panel backpack, what it's used good for, and everything that could be built on top of it, because there's always something to improve when it comes to technology. So it was better for me to make a prototype and maybe inspire someone else to make maybe want to make a better version, and that they would want to improve on. And so I like to show what I've worked on to give others inspiration of what to do. One of the projects that I'm working on is for a science fair, and I'm going to try to make a prosthetic arm. I'm still researching on which model and method I'm going to use the prosthetic arm. But that's just what I'm working on now. And then one of the projects I do want to accomplish is making an AI. I choose these projects based on my wanting to understand how these work and maybe improve upon it. And even if I don't improve upon it, I can at least show others and inspire them to improve upon it. And so that's why that's one of the fundamentals of STEM, is being able to show what you've done to inspire like the next generation of inventors and innovators. And that's it. That's me.
Renee, that was such an inspiring story, I have to tell you. Thank you so much. You've inspired me, and I am sure everyone in this room is super excited and inspired by what you just told us. I mean, in high school, prototype, when I was in high school, I didn't even know what the word meant, prototype, but you really speak to the real meaning and the heart of what it means to be an inventor. And I wish you continued success and all the best in all of your endeavors. What an inspiration to all of us. Thank you for sharing your beautiful story with us. Our next speaker is Tanaga Boozer, and I've known Tanaga now for almost 10 years. She and I work together at the United States Patent and Trademark Office in the Office of Education, and I miss her dearly. But the United States Department of Agriculture is very lucky to have Tanaga. She recently joined USDA in their Agricultural Research Services organization as the which is the Scientific Technology Transfer Coordinator. In that role, she provides technology transfer and intellectual property support and assistance to approximately nearly 500 researchers across 9 states and 27 research facilities within the United States Department of Agriculture network throughout the Southeast United States. In this role, Tanaga Boozer negotiates on behalf of ARS the transfer of agricultural research products to the private sector. She advises the area director, all the directors, institute directors, center directors on matters of related to policy in regards to intellectual property and technology transfer and commercialization. She is responsible for reviewing and approving technical presentations and applications for innovation awards for scientists at ARS. She serves on not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 patent committees in chemical, life science, mechanical, and plant. This is why you don't have time to sleep at night, right? But she amazing work, Ms. Boozer, to help promote innovative technologies and advocate for wide dissemination of the department's agricultural products. Tanaga Boozer holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from Russ College, an MBA from Prairie View A&M University, and a law degree, JD degree from the University of Mississippi, and also an LLM degree from George Washington University. Wow, what an impressive resume. Tanaga, pass it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge, and I miss you dearly as well. So thanks for being here. It's exciting for me to be here to just kind of share my journey with you. I think I'm going to make my final point first. The final point, and the thing that I'd like to impress upon the educators in the group, is that don't do it my way. I wish I had known what I know now when I was 12. I wish I could say that I understood my life and what I was going to do at 12 or perhaps 18 or maybe even 20. Well, it didn't happen that way for me. So if we can go to the next slide, I will just kind of share a little bit about how all of this came together for me. I toiled last night with how do I present this? I was actually thinking about, instead of my career path, just saying connecting the dots, how I got these things into, or how they actually came into my actual environment and sphere. So I started at Rusk College. It was really awesome. It's an HBCU there in Mississippi. There, folks were very positive. That's where I got excited about science. Thanks to my high school teachers, I realized that math and science went together, because I started off as a math major, got upset with my Calc 3 professor, and decided that, okay, I'm out of here. I'm going to do just straight chemistry. So I ended up with chemistry. Best decision of my life, because it actually led me to where all of these little kind of connections go. So I left there, and then I went from science, I went to Prairie View in Texas to get my MBA. I thought, I don't really want to do science, don't want to do it, but I want to talk about it. I want to be involved in it. So I thought an MBA would be the thing to do. Worked for 3 years in between. And then I thought somehow, I don't know why, that maybe I should go to law school. It was in law school that a professor said, you know what, you have a science background. Why don't you think about intellectual property? At that point, what do you mean intellectual property? What exactly is that? And so because he pushed me to that, I then went the summer between my second and third year of school to the Copyright Office to do a 6-week internship, volunteer internship from Mississippi to DC without any money. Wow, what an interesting summer that was. So I went to the Copyright Office. I was supposed to do 6 weeks there. The copyright team said, well, why are you here? You have a science background. Why don't you go to the patent office? And I thought, well, but I'm here. You brought me on here. And I took the hint, though. So they let me go 2 weeks early. So I walked over in the patent office, happened to be in Crystal City, not in Alexandria at that time. I walked there, and lo and behold, there was a guy from HR walking down the street. And I said, the folks at the Copyright Office told me I'm supposed to come over here and just find things out. So he said, oh, great. I know the person to take you to. So he took me to a director. Director immediately sent me to the Patent Academy, enrolled me in the 2-week patent examining class for new examiners. My life changed. That's when my world opened up. So I had that STEM degree. Now I was actually moving into IP. And so then right after I went back and finished my third year, I came back to the patent office as a patent examiner. Things started to change for me. After I left the patent office, I went up to the National Institute of Standards and Technology to actually work in their tech transfer office. And so my world was starting to open up. My STEM degree mattered. Now I've got the intellectual property thing going. And then at some point, I'm going to get to the invention, but I'm connecting the dots. So from the chemistry to the intellectual property. And if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about invention. Now, most people actually, I guess, end up being inventors because they were curious about science and all of that. What's interesting about my journey is that I ended up getting involved in invention because I was concerned about inventors. I wanted to make sure that HBCUs, minority students, underrepresented, limited resource institutions had an opportunity to participate in invention. I saw that right away. I was like, okay, why aren't people participating? So as I desired to help people, help inventors and schools and institutions to invent their things, I ended up inventing a system to help them do that. And I did that at FAMU. So my love for invention, for STEM and all of that kind of came together. But the most important thing about this slide are those 2 words at the top, inventing to invention. Many people focus on the invention, the patent there, the final thing. Mm-hmm. Actually, I think the inventing piece, the action, the excitement, the path, for me, this whole path was super, super exciting. And it was probably exciting because I wasn't thinking about the thing, the patent, the prototype, the end goal. What I was thinking about was how I could help, how I could assist. And while I was doing that, the story was a good story. The money started to come for the invention. I started to get grants and things to actually support the actual technology. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, you can actually see this is the prototype that FAMU actually brokered a deal with this software company, Cuddlesoft, to actually get this thing up and running, or at least the prototype up and running. So the slide on the left is actually the slide that I developed, sat down one day and envisioned how we could actually support limited resource institutions and HBCUs in a virtual tech transfer kind of way. So I spent a lot of years working on that, getting the funding, trying to get support through DC, and it was just exciting. So the most exciting thing for me was not necessarily the endpoint, but the journey. So let me go back to what I started off saying, that the most important thing for educators, I wish that I had been intentional. I wish I had the information. I wish I had the STEM innovation, invention, education in K-12. I wish I could have been more intentional about my pathway. If I had to do it differently, I probably wouldn't, because it's been an exciting journey, but I do think you get a different result when you're able to teach students and expose them, as Renee said so eloquently, that he's been exposed. And if you expose students early on, I think they end up being very intentional about where they want to end up. I fell into it, and thankfully I had wonderful people, mentors, each step of the way to help me and to drop some new thing, a new add on to what I already had, to really give me this very real broad and complete idea and opportunity to participate in both innovation and invention. So that's my story.
That's awesome, Tanaga. Thank you for sharing that passion, the passion that I know you always have and carry with you. It's beautiful to hear and to see, and to have that. I've had that opportunity, and hopefully continue to have that opportunity to work with alongside you on a new project, actually, that we talked about earlier this week. So I'm excited about that. Okay, so we're going to open up the questions to our participants. I'm going to go with the first question of the day that I sort of posted a little bit earlier, and it is for our student, Renee. So Renee, the question is, what initiated, what started your interest in STEM? And I think the person said, was it family visits to the museum? I know you mentioned your love of math and making that connection with math and STEM. Can you speak to, what were the things that kind of got you into STEM?
Yes. So the things that got me into STEM were mostly just the people around me being exposing me to it. So it was, whether it be I randomly like in the community, I would see like someone like randomly talk about a new thing or technology, or if it was seeing it at the Science Center, or a teacher explaining a new concept that I just personally found interesting. I tend to be more, when I'm curious, when I find something that I'm curious and passionate about, I will go out of my way and discover and learn and teach myself how to do those things, or how that works. And I would, the thing that helped me the most is mostly just my community basically exposing me to a variety of different fields and of science and STEM related fields. And that's what led me to pursue a career in STEM.
Renee, if I could just follow up with that, what do you mean? Can you elaborate a little bit about your community? What are you referring to when you say your community?
Oh, when I'm referring to my community, I'm referring to my schools, my church, and the family and friends that I'm surrounded by, as well as like the culture of Arizona, because there are lots of things. Well, everything could be improved, but finding small, minute things that I feel like could be done a little better, or I'm curious of how it works, I will go out of my way and find solutions to those problems.
Awesome. I mean, that combination of curiosity and passion for things, oh my God, that's what every educator aspires to, right? They could have their students, kind of take away those things, no matter what subject you teach, in STEM or otherwise. That's one of the greatest gifts that we can give as educators to our students. The next question, both Tanaga and Dr. Tucker talked about the university connection, and I want to kind of follow up a little bit with a question from the chat is, how do we make these university connections? Can you give us some examples of ways in which you can get students like from at the high school level, but other grades as well, into experiences sort of in a college sort of environment? And this person is looking to create something that is sort of helping students, a pathway for students, more than just a sort of a summer experience. I think, Tanaga, you hit this point. Dr. Tucker, you showed us by way of amazing examples here with your work at ASU, but maybe this question if you guys can.
Yeah, Tanaga, if you want to go first, if not, I'll go. First off, it's great to be here with Tanaga because I've heard so much about you and what you've done with HBC, especially at FAMU, being part of Autumn and our EDI committee. And that's something I actually want to do on a collegiate level too one day. So I guess for me, where I kind of originally started was, first off, I've been in many programs like this growing up, grew up with a single mom, economically impacted area. And if it weren't for me having, I think a lot of us growing up, that curiosity for science, like many of us do, but it's kind of back to Renee's point, resources, access, stuff along those lines in your community. And if it weren't for a mom, I had to take me to the Rocket Club because she saw me, wanting to build things and shoot them off into the air. Till this day, I'm still a sci-fi fanatic. And hopefully one day I can get up there like Cyan Proctor. Shout out to fellow Sun Devil from ASU. If anybody doesn't know, she just went in space with SpaceX. So, but also, I would say besides the clubs on the K through 12 level within the community, it's also just mentorship. I heard that was brought up tonight. Like tonight, just being around with you all, I'm being mentored myself. I mentored Renee. So try to creating that hierarchy. Something that really stood out to me when I got older, I used to play football for the city and, play against Powell Police Athletic Leagues, but found out Nikola Tesla used to have an experimental station right there at the park or near there. In fact, I went back home a couple, probably years ago, and they actually put a commemorative marker there about his experimental station back in 1899, where he further developed AC electricity, and people are familiar with Thomas Edison, what they did around the Industrial Revolution, and he did with DC Electric. So, and obviously I'm in energy, so it was inspirations like that. So I really tried to carry that flame, that spark, you could say, into college. So I've always been a big fan of just connecting people with making platforms and having an opportunity like what we did in the community. So just that spark of myself now and how I can get that energy out with everyone else with different programs and being part of programs like this tonight too.
So just to kind of tag on to what Greg is saying, I think one thing that's really important is to meet the folks where they are. One of the coolest things that I was able to do at FAMU is look at what resources, what opportunities exist already. Are high schoolers coming on campus? Absolutely. Every summer they have all kinds of camps, right? So you can either go to those camps and ask them to give you a day to share invention education or invention projects with them. It could be football, it could be soccer, because invention can be anything, right? So you can ask for a day so that you can do your outreach there, or you can create a camp. And that's what I did. We actually hosted an invention camp, right, for the summer. So we just added on to the list of camps because they've got a whole bunch of them. So that's what you do for K-12. For the universities, you actually go to the engineering school. They've got their senior projects. You say, by the way, are you talking about intellectual property? We've been working, when I was at the patent office, with Howard for many, many years through their engineering department. We worked with University of Houston, the Department of Education, Department of Energy, funded the University of Houston and Texas Southern for a summer program. So there are many ways. You don't actually have to get creative in creating or building your own program from scratch. Just kind of go and because a lot of people don't understand the connection between STEM and innovation and invention. So if you just go into the STEM classroom and just start asking some random invention kinds of concepts and get folks excited about what you're talking about, just ask for a couple hours. Those little hours will turn into a week, and then maybe even to a full 6-week camp. So that's what I would do. Just go with what they have already. Don't try to, change the world. Just take, small steps.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker and Tanaga, for those responses. We appreciate that. And talking about connections, I mean, we're making connections in real time here with the chat. So this question actually came from Jason about, the university connection. And then we have in the chat, Dr., and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name, Merlin Pulikathara, who does outreach activities with elementary students and is happy to collaborate with those who might be interested. She also she teaches physics and provided her email here. Jake Foster has an interesting question here that gets to the heart of some of the things that as an educator when I was in the classroom would keep me up at night, which is, what am I going to do to teach students about things that don't exist today, right? And sort of it goes to your question about, Tanaga, you referred to intentionality and preparing students for a world that is not yet written or understood. And to me, it's a great responsibility and challenge. It's also really an exciting for educators to think in that space and to afford students what kind of preparation what can educators do to really support students in that kind of futuristic look? Dr. Tucker, you talked about some of those things as well too. So any of you can answer that or can speak to it if you'd like.
Yeah, I would have to say, especially, I'm not a formal educator in the K-12 system, but doing a lot of volunteering. I think that was really important, meeting people where they're at, like how I mentioned some of those people in the community. I think it's really important to mention people who've done certain things in the community to where people from that community can say, hey, I can do it too. I think that's number one. That's kind of a bit of an inspiration, showing that mentorship. And then just having partnering with different groups. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Like I said, I ended up partnering with other men in the community who wanted to make change. I could have easily tried to do something myself, but I wanted to be part of something bigger. So humbling yourself is really big. Also, there's a lot of unique little funding opportunities out there to where you'll be surprised of different ideas that you might have, that there might be a RFP out there with the municipality at that local university. Some people might, if you just dream big and have a vision, but can show stepwise how it can be done, people will fund some of your activities, like I was kind of mentioning with the fuel cells. I did not buy those out of pocket. In fact, that was actually an inspiration I got from the Electrochemical Society when they were in town, but figured out how to fund an activity like that and create different things, like the different activities that we did with the solar cells and stuff along those lines, to where it got so exciting, not being so much an inventor like I was in the lab, but an innovator in the community. And then finally taking the community to the campus, where bringing them that access. And I think I'll leave with this last thing, a lot of barriers that I see. Phoenix has a lot of urban sprawl. So one of the biggest issues that we had was transportation. And so we end up teaching the kids how to use public transportation. I guess maybe this goes back when me growing up. I remember I used to go to Boys and Girls Club, and they would take us on the city bus. And I don't know if it was legal back then, but some of us would be sitting on the floor. We did not do that with our Ironman Network, but we definitely had taught the kids like everyday basic skills to where that helped the parents as well. So that's another last thing I want to leave. If you can help the parents out where they don't always have to pick up the kids or They can have some kind of savings in gas and their time can go a long way and help their kids become more resilient. Is a win-win, especially with the kids and the teachers as well.
Yeah, so Renee, did you want to respond to that question? Okay, well, I'll take it. So if I understand the question correctly, here's my response. How do you get kids to think about inventing a world that doesn't exist? Well, I think there are two approaches, right? You can evolve, or you can what is the word I'm going to say? Some people are revolutionary and some people are evolutionary. If it's evolutionary, it's stepwise. And there will be some students who can actually start and get to the next step, right? They can use their brains to get to the next step. And then there are some people who can actually just think of things, just off the top and create something out of nothing. I think we need both of those students. I think we need both. So I don't think we necessarily just have to prepare the students to think about what doesn't exist. We can actually prepare students to think freely. So I think the best advice is giving them a space and the tools to actually to think creatively and freely and just have imagination. But the means for how they get there, whether it's stepwise, evolving, or just, coming up with something out of nothing where it's completely revolutionary, like never had anything like that before, that's acceptable too. I don't think we have to do it one way. I think both ways would be acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess just to kind of piggyback off that real quick, if I failed to mention this, it's exposure at the end of the day to help ideation and stuff along those lines. So really good comments here tonight.
Renee, did you want to add to Dr. Tucker and Tanaga?
No, I think they said.
We covered. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, no, I resonate with all of your comments about access and exposure. There's been some studies that some of you may be aware of that, who gets to be an inventor in America depends on where you grow up, right?
Definitely.
So, there's a seminal paper that was published several years ago, and sometimes it's referred to the Lost Einsteins, and maybe someone can put a link to the paper or some of the literature on that. But it's really interesting to see that, and it's a reality, and it's a reality that we face, that we all face, so I also resonate with mentoring, because I think, as I look at my own career at Bell Laboratories, and being one of a small group of young researchers of color, there were, it was that group that I had lunch with, that I collaborated with, that I invented with, that I published with. That was the group that really helped to forge my own confidence to do what I did over those, 25 years at the laboratories. And I think, Tanaga and Dr. Tucker and Renee, we feel very strongly about, having people in our lives, whether it's through the church, through our communities, that really contribute to those, to that success longer term. So we know that there is data that suggests that there's a gap in terms of inventors, in terms of young women in general, and also of underrepresented groups in inventorships. What are your thoughts about how we can change that? How do we? What do we need to do? In either education and government or industry? I know it's big umbrella that helps us can begin to think about how we begin to close those gaps.
It's first off, it starts with yourself, and and helping other people. You can, again, join different programs where you can help other people, but then also, like now at the collegiate level, Tanaga said it the best, like what I do presently, it allows me to show different faces, different ethnicities, different genders, and help people cultivate their ideas at the collegiate level. So now they do have a point of contact, or they've always had a point of contact, but now someone that probably not only just looks like them, but we are not only different ethnically, but cultural wise. And it's been proven that people who think different can approach a problem in a different way to come up with a different solution. So trying to include that inclusivity. So, and kind of to your point, I remember at, when you talk about inventorship, it is kind of centered around white male. And I think it's in the single digits where it's less people of color, women, and disabilities. Sometimes that's a forgotten group as well. So first off, starting with yourself and just even being in the space, and then connecting with different people. Again, I may sound like a broken record, but not reinventing the wheel, but also having a dream, a vision, to where that can start to bring the masses around, to where that vision is an idea. And if you can have people support that idea, you can definitely take it to the next level and take as many people with you as well.
Yeah, and I think too, I love that. Yeah, I hate that Joyce Ward couldn't make it tonight, but I love one of the coolest things about Joyce and about the Office of Education Outreach. She made it very clear that we needed to be inclusive. So if we had to go to TJ, right, the technical high school, we also got to go into the district to a school where it wasn't necessarily the STEM school, right? It was something opposite of that, perhaps, right? I think we have to be committed to making sure that we are intentional about making sure we include everybody. For example, I can't tell you the number of times when we were going out to a K-12 school, they said, oh, let's get the gifted kids. We'll bring the gifted kids into the program. No. And I'll give you a really quick story. We went to a school out, it was in Northern Virginia, and the teacher was like, this kid, he doesn't pay attention. He doesn't do anything. We'll just call him Ben. Ben is just, he just won't do this. Do you know, we let Ben into the program. Ben was the model student. He was amazing. The teacher was amazed. He got his parents involved, went home, did the homework, and was just amazing. So I think sometimes we have to really dispel this notion that STEM and invention education is for actually a particular student or a particular group. It's not. You just got to find ways to balance things out and go after the girls, go after the minorities, go into the communities where they don't have a 3D printer or they don't have a maker space, and you create a maker space for them, even if it has to be, a makeshift space, because you're trying to tap into the creativity and you're being intentional about including and inviting in the people that are generally excluded.
I have a question for Renee. What advice would you give? We have a large teacher audience, I think, I hope. What advice would you give the teachers in our audience about how they can get their students inspired and engaged in, and I love the way, I think you should trademark, inventing, what was it? Inventing to invention. It's not really about the end goal, about the patent, although we would like you to have a patent if if that, so be it. But the process of getting there, the journey of getting there is beautiful. And you learn so much. And I think Renee and Dr. Tucker, you shared in Tanaga as well. What would you tell, what advice would you give your educators so they can get fired up tomorrow morning and get their students on this track?
I would say that exposing them is a very required thing, and also being patient, because when you're focused on exposing students to a concept and they react very negatively, it can be frustrating because it could seem like that they don't care or they're not interested in trying to find something. And I think being patient in letting them figure out and decide what they're interested in, not. And you may show them 1,000 scientific concepts, and they only found interest in one and was only participating and active in one. as much effort as it takes, it's, even if it takes 1,000 times, still that one experience or influence is enough to spark the wheels in their brain that want to go out and learn more, or do something that they've never wanted to do. And I would say patience, exposure, and just being very accepting is another thing, because when someone at a very young, impressionable age wants to do something, and the people that they look up to tells them no, it can have the effect that they never want to do anything with that, and that would affect everything related to that, especially in STEM, where everything, all the areas of STEM are so closely well knit. It can just shut them off from everything. So being very accepting in what they choose and trying to support rather than like push a certain idea. As Ms. Tanaga was saying, I forgot where I was going with that. I was just so focused in the moment, but very accepting and patient and willing to go the extra mile in exposing them is, I would say, the best advice.
Renee, I have to tell you, I am so happy that all of you are here today, but I am so happy that this is being recorded, because your message is so beautiful and so beautifully said that I know we need to broadcast your message to all schools and all educators around the nation. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying what you said. That's a powerful message for all of us. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Kate for some closing remarks and upcoming events.
And I know this has been, it was just so beautiful, Renee. What a powerful way to sort of wrap up the evening with that message.
Wow. Oh my God, I'm blown away.
Yes. And I know we've dropped a note about these upcoming events, but for sure, those young people out there, the upcoming NOBCChE's Junior Scholars, Innovating Science Summit, like, oh my goodness, don't forget to miss out on that. Don't forget to miss out on that. Don't forget to join in for that, because it's really a fabulous event. And I had another event, but I got so excited here. Society's Regeneron Science Talent Search exhibition of projects is coming up March 13th. We've got March 16th, where to start integrating sustainability into chemistry. I know everybody's jumping off. We wanted to say a big thank you to the Lemelson Foundation for making this possible this evening. And a huge shout out to our phenomenal panelists. Thank you so much, Tanaga, Greg, and Renee. And a huge thank you to Jorge for moderating and just leading this evening's really fantastic event. So thank you. Please don't forget to join us. We have 2 more speaker series, so come on and join us for April 13th and May 10th. And thanks so much. Have a fantastic evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.